think I mentioned I have to drop off soon, but
So why don't we work with Delegate Stein first?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
And then we have a couple of the advocates, I think, here as
All right,
well.
we are live.
Great. Great. All right, so we are starting our subcommittee on civil law and procedure. It is 12:25 on 2/25, and we're going to start off with Delegate Stein's bill. The bill number is, I'm pulling up everything right now.
23.
The bill number is 23. And I understand, does anybody need an explanation on the bill? This is the bill that would restrict communications with ICE in terms of their contact and their the charges, right?
We do, yeah, we have amendments. So I don't know if if Delegate Stein, if you want to go through your amendments, the members have all received those.
Yep.
sure. Why don't I start, and then since I do have to drop off, I'll have ask Kim and Alvaro to follow up. The amendment number 2, what it does is it sort of simplifies the discussion about not being able to provide access to ICE or any federal agent for purpose of immigration by basically saying that any person who receives personal information cannot disclose that information to a federal agent or federal agency for the purpose of federal immigration enforcement, unless the person is presented with a valid warrant issued by a federal court or a court of the state. So it sort of streamlines the language in the bill that was a little bit more complicated into this. And similarly, the amendments in the language amendment 3 does the same, refers to enforcing federal immigration law as opposed to making a distinction between civil immigration enforcement and criminal immigration enforcement. Then Kim or Alvaro, if you want to talk about the other language on page 2, about the definition.
Sure.
Of enforcement agency.
So there was the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services clarified that technically they are generally not considered a criminal justice agency in their entirety. And because they manage a lot of the records that were used by ICE warrantlessly, basically secretly, we are keen to make sure that their records are included in this bill, that those records are protected with a warrant requirement. And so what we basically say here is that for the purposes of this part of the bill, law enforcement agency does include the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, Deep 6.
That's number 2, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And so 3(2)I is that, and then the third one is getting at the specific provision, which is, we all had a rude awakening last year when we realized that ICE was directly going into the Maryland face recognition system and searching as much as they wanted to. And so by expressly saying they are not included in the definition of law enforcement agency, we are saying that they always have to go through Maryland law enforcement. Yep. So they cannot directly plug in.
That makes sense.
Acting on behalf, I think that's just a more technical amendment. And the key one is at the end, page 3, it says, notwithstanding any other provision of this title, an officer, employer, agent, or contractor of the state cannot disclose public records or personal information on those records or photos of Marylanders to any person for the purpose of federal immigration law, unless there's a warrant from either a federal court or a court of the state. And what this is about is, someone pointed out that a lot of the bill is about ICE requesting information or just going in and getting it. but the bill may not perfectly cover the scenario where a Maryland official affirmatively wants to share it with ICE. And so, which has come up in states like Washington State, for example, where there were rogue employees that were basically siphoning information to ICE in bulk. And so this would say that you can't do that. You just have to get a warrant for that transaction to occur. And
Can I ask one quick question? Sub I and triple I, or 1 and 3 in subset 3.
Yes, sir.
Are they going to be in conflict, or can you put them together and just say includes federal agencies except for ICE? You have to.
I don't see an issue with that.
I'm just wondering if you have, because you have federal agencies, yes, included,
Right.
but ICE not included. And I wonder if they're going to say, well, it says we're included, and then that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, so I wouldn't personally, but if you want to do that, I wouldn't object. Personally, I think it carries greater force when there's a specific clause specifically saying ICE, not you. And so I would.
But then could you? I mean, and maybe the question is, law enforcement agencies means a federal, state, or local agency except for United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement is not included. I guess
see no issue with that.
I guess it's fine the way it is.
Whatever you prefer.
No, I would leave it up to the subcommittee to say it's not urgent. I just want to make sure it's clear that they are not going to say, well, there's some question there.
And Mr. Chair and subcommittee, I have to say so long. Thanks for considering this bill.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think I would like to see that provision in there just to make it very clear.
Okay, so make it even clearer than it is. I'm saying that the way it's written now, is it clear enough for you, Nicole, or Delegate Williams?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
It is clear enough. Okay. All right, fair enough. Any other?
Delegate Carding, can we go over exactly what we want to change in the amendment?
No, I think that Delegate
we're
Williams was
good.
saying that she's okay with the amendment the way it is, right?
Okay.
No, I was saying I was agreeing with your proposed change to
Oh, you were. Okay.
say it does not include federal immigration.
Right. So basically combined 1 and 3, so that it is very clear that they're not. It's all federal agencies except for. Are there other immigration agencies that could take advantage of this?
I guess USCIS, but I don't know.
And the other question is, can like FBI and ICE work together, and FBI get it and then give it to ICE? I mean, that's the other.
Mr. Chair, that is, sorry, may I just address that?
Please,
yeah.
Please.
So you're exactly right, but there's a reason we're not trying to do that, because it would shut off a whole other system that it is not the intent of the vice chair to impede, which is the Secure Communities program. Now, frankly, I believe, I won't speak for you, Kim, but I believe CASA also has strong objections to that program, but that's not the debate for today. And so we are not trying to impede sharing within the federal government. We're just trying to control the moment at which our state's employees and officers share to the federal government. And so you could, in theory, make the bill even tighter, but I think you'd have a much, much bigger debate on your hands, which we're not here to have today.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Sorry, can I just to add, I'm asking a question to Alvaro now, to Delegate Fisher's point about ICE being too specific, and are there utilizations for USCIS, CBP that could be relevant also?
Yeah, and so this is, in my view, a belt and suspenders measure. This little provision that says ICE, you can't be in the database is just belt and suspenders, because there's a whole separate provision that says no matter what agency you're a part of, federal officer.
Still have to get a warrant.
Exactly. And so this is just for the specific use case we saw come up in Catonsville and Rockville, where you had the folks actually reaching in.
Okay, but do you think that there's any other agency that we should list specifically that may be doing what ICE was doing?
So the lead contender, which I would suggest we don't include, is Customs and Border Protection, because they have, next to ICE, they do an awful lot of immigration enforcement, but we don't want to do that because There are lots, CBP does immigration enforcement, but does customs. It does a whole series of other things. And we don't want to mess with the ports. We don't want to mess with situations where there's a free flow. And so the ports will only be affected if there's an immigration enforcement purpose. Then they'll need a warrant. But we don't want to impede the free sharing that occurs there. So I would suggest we stick to ICE in here. Because this is the strongest provision for that. Everyone else, CBP, USCIS, will be covered by the warrant provision if they're doing enforcement.
All right, Holly, back to your question. I think what Delegate Williams was suggesting was if you go to 3I, it would say law enforcement agency means a federal, state, or local agency authorized to enforce criminal law accepting United States immigration and customs enforcement.
Okay, so you're taking 3, you want to take 3 up.
I think that
Roman numeral 3 up to 1 to make it clear.
to make it clear that
Sure.
it is not included.
Okay,
I agree. It doesn't matter. I mean, I think that if it's something we want to do, that's great. I don't think we have. I don't think that anybody's going to wonder what the intent is and what we're trying to accomplish here either way.
okay.
Mr. Chair, I have my hand raised.
Yes, Ms. Fisher.
Can I make,
Delegate
can I make a motion, move favorable to adopt the amendment?
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Maybe Mr. Bedonia and Ms. Vandergrift can figure out the language that cleans that up exactly the way we want it to, so that it's as tight as it can be.
Happy to.
Okay. All right. Is that the only amendment that we were dealing with?
Yes, that's the only one we received.
All right. Is there a motion on the amendment as amended?
Move favor, so moved.
Second.
All right.
Discussion?
Thank you for doing that amendment, Alvaro. Appreciate
No
it.
roll call?
Do you want to do a roll call or do you just want to do by hands?
I think Delegate
Roll call.
Malone wants to speak on the bill.
I'd rather,
Okay.
any chance we can actually have the draft before we vote on it? I'd rather be seeing it.
Oh, the amendment, I think, was in our email. I
It
thought,
was in the
I
email and
thought
Holly
we just said we were
shared her
going to clean it up.
oh,
All right, so the amendment, if you have, all the amendment does is, do you have a copy of the amendment, Mike? Can you-
Well, I'd like to have the final copy.
Okay,
Well, right now, the final was sent out in the email. And
Okay,
Right,
so that's
no,
what
he's
we're,
saying-
I just want to make sure that's the one we're voting on, correct?
that was the one we just voted on unless.
Well, we didn't vote on it. I mean,
no, we only voted on changing the little bit of verbiage, actually just putting
just moving
one,
it.
three together into one statement. That's the only thing we've done so far. Now
Okay.
we're voting on we were going to vote on the amendment with that very minor change. That amendment we have not substantively changed the amendment. We've only condensed 1 and 3 into one sentence. Do you still want a copy of that amendment now?
I think I'm good.
Okay, I mean, all right. So the amendment as amended, there's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion, questions? All right. All those in favor, raise your hand.
You want the physical hand or this hand?
Physical hand, physical hand. Any
Oh.
all those opposed? All those opposed. So we have Grammer opposed, Malone opposed, Cox opposed.
Hi, Robin.
Hey, guys.
Good. That was very unexpected. I'm just teasing. All right, now we have the bill as amended. Discussion.
Move favorable.
Second.
Okay, so there's a favorable motion on the floor. Discussion about the bill.
I'll just make a point if I can, Mr. Chair.
Sure, please.
After 9/11, we really looked at a lot of ways for the federal government to work with state governments, and this kind of undoes that. It's not the same issue. I'll grant that. I just wish we looked so importantly on Fourth Amendment issues when they were between the state and the individual, as we do when they are with the federal government and the state government.
Right. I mean, I'm happy to let anybody else respond. My feeling is, we're saying, look, you got to have a warrant, you got to have probable cause, you got to have a reason to believe, and you can't just be fishing. That's really, I mean, I don't believe anybody should be fishing. That's my take. Does anybody have any other comments?
I agree. with you.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Delegate Fraser.
Yes, Delegate Boyce.
Hi, how are you? I was going to respectfully say I agree. I mean, if someone is doing something wrong, then you would have evidence, you would get a warrant, and then you would serve that warrant and apprehend a suspect. But if you're just, when I think about that potentially somebody, my name might be just randomly caught up in, that database. I may be another Regina T. Boyce who happens to be, I don't know, an immigrant from, South America. I don't know, right? And then I get caught up in something has nothing to do with me just because someone had access to a database to just pull information, and it even goes beyond immigration. I just don't think you should be free nilly-willy in any records without one having noticed that you're in those records. So if something happens, I can hold somebody accountable to say this person was in records without permission and thereby abused that used to be in those records. So I think that's the biggest issue for me. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes, Delegate Conaway. And then Delegate, we'll do cleanup, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo. You'll do cleanup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask a question. Is Maryland officially a sanctuary state?
I don't think there's any official or unofficial designation as sanctuary.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that's an official designation. It may be one
that's just a posture, basically, or
I think it's a label that's put on people based on certain criteria that certain industries or individuals decide what they are. I don't think that there's any official definition of a sanctuary state.
All right, thank you very
I
much.
could be wrong about that, and staff may be able to correct me, but I'm pretty sure that's. Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Yeah, I think that my colleague from the amazing Environment and Transportation Committee, she said pretty much what I was going to say, so I don't have anything to add. I agree with every single word she said.
All right, so let's vote. These votes are not, I don't believe they're recorded, although they are live, so people will know. But although there's a motion and there's a second, so all those in favor of the favorable report, raise your hand.
Aye.
And all those opposed, raise your hand. We have Grammer opposed, Cox opposed, Malone opposed. Very good. Thank you to the advocates for being here to help answer all the questions that were raised. Are we done with that bill, Holly?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for letting us hang out.
Yep,
Thank you
thanks.
for joining.
Annie, please come back all the time.
Love to.
Bye.
Great.
Now we are on House Bill 260, Delegate Fisher's.
Delegate Fisher's bill. Delegate Fisher, do you want to tell?
Best. No, I'm just joking.
You want to tell everybody what the bill's about?
Yeah, well, I'm like unprepared. Let me open it. Hold on. Holly, can you give a brief overview as I open my notes?
Really? You don't want to do it yourself?
No. Holly's way better. So, this is only for the right to counsel piece, right? Or which one are you on? Oh, my jury services
bill.
Oh,
Jury-
sorry, I'm on the wrong
The
one.
jury bill.
No, totally,
Sorry.
totally different, not housing at all.
Sorry, I don't know my bills by number, which is so bad. Okay.
So this is the one that passed last year.
Myself. Yeah, I'm sorry, Holly. I thought we were on right to counsel. My apologies, committee. Thank you for going over jury service. This bill did pass last year. This bill basically allows individuals in our community who have just like the voting that this chamber, not this chamber, the MGA passed to restore voting rights to individuals that were felons. This would allow them also to serve in the capacity of our jury pools. And so other than that, it's pretty self-explanatory. You would still have, attorneys would still have the same ability to voir dire, to strike someone out of their jury pool, anything like, none of that would change in this bill. The only, let me just open it. So that would be basically it. I know that there were some questions about individual, I think the issue for the subcommittee maybe was about, let's say, someone was charged, right? And they weren't prosecuted, right? You're being held on a crime, and you haven't lost, your ability to be served, to serve on a jury. But that still is the issue now, whether someone was a felon or not. So I would give you the example of, I don't have a felony criminal record that I know of. And let's say tomorrow I got arrested for like a felony charge and I'm being held without, without a bond, I'm just being held, right? And someone wants to serve me, like the paperwork, I get picked to serve in a jury pool. So that's still like a technical issue. Either way, it's not necessarily, I think there are some concerns about that, but either way, that's still an issue we face for people that have no criminal past. You get picked up on any crime, or something that could happen to you and you might be in a correctional facility before. It's not necessarily, that's just because someone has a prior felony charge that they're always be in the situation being pulled for jury service as they're waiting a crime. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But if you have a prior felony conviction, you would still be eliminated, right?
You would still be eliminated from.
According to your bill, if you have a prior felony, and I thought that I remembered that from the bill.
Well, it just says has been convicted of a felony, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which prior or currently, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have that intent, then we need to clean that up. If it's any felony at all, then they're outside of the possibility of serving. Is that what your intent is? Just regardless?
No, I believe the intent, I think that to me, the intent of the bill was as you finished and you restored your voting rights, you also would be restored to serve on a jury.
So it doesn't matter whether you just served a 5-year sentence for aggravated assault. You, as soon as you are done your sentence, you're
back included into
you're eligible.
The pool. You're back to being eligible.
Okay.
And I apologize because I don't know, what are the voting rights? I mean, I guess I'm just trying to understand.
So now there are we used to have that you basically, if you had a felony on your record, you were banned from voting.
Right.
Yeah.
We changed that over the last few years. Actually, we started it years ago and we've moved forward. Now there are specific enumerated crimes which prohibit you from voting.
Okay.
They deal with fraud or voter fraud or that kind of thing. But as long as you're done your sentence, you are permitted to vote. Doesn't matter what the crime is, as long as it's not one of those few enumerated crimes.
And so, so the intention of my bill is to basically align with what we've already passed on the voting. And I think, Holly, I could We'll lead on to you if that is what, if you
So-
believe that's what the bill is doing, because that's the intention. That
Yes.
same group of people would also be allowed to be as the whole point is to be a full citizen again. In order to be a full citizen, you have the right to vote and to actually serve in our system, you know, on jury pools, civil and criminal. So that's
Opposition, I
That's
believe
the goal.
opposition from the State's Attorneys Association, right? And
yeah.
it wasn't like vehement opposition. It was just,
They weren't vehement about it because obviously they can voir dire. So
right, they can voir dire and they can strike them if they want to.
yeah.
So everybody gets voir dired. And I mean, for those of you who have never picked a jury before, the judge asks, does the fact that you X, Y, and Z, will that inhibit your ability to be able to make a decision impartially on this situation? And
Yeah.
if the person says, yes, I cannot be impartial, then the judge can strike them. That's not a for cause strike. That the judge gets to strike them off and tell them to leave. So
And I wanted to highlight one other concern. And I think I sort of explained it, but with if someone's being detained prior to trial, and you'd have to explain to the court why you couldn't go to serve on a jury the same way if you had a travel issue or a work issue, you would still just explain why you can't go serve. So it's not going to be, it's a very nuanced thing. I know that Mr. Chair brought a question about that, and a couple of advocates sent him sort of the response as well. It's, you know, you wouldn't have someone who's detained for another crime, like being like, okay, we have to bring you upstairs to room 260 for a jury pool. You know, you would reply that you're unable to serve because you're being detained, as the same way people reply all the time for all kinds of situations, you know, whether they have work or they can't do that time and all of those things. So I don't think it's going to be a real problem. I know it was just like a little thing, so I wanted to bring it to the subcommittee's attention and just address that. But yeah, so that's the intention of the bill. I would look to how the bill. I think
so
clear.
can I ask a question? This might be for Holly.
Mm-hmm.
If I've dealt with people who've gotten jury notices, haven't gone, and then gotten summons to that they're going to be threatened with some sort of penalty for not showing up. So if somebody doesn't show up because they're in jail, but they don't have any documentation because they didn't keep any documentation, and they come back and they're getting penalized, and all they can do is say, Judge, I was in jail. I mean, I guess the judge can check the records. He can check JIS. But that would be the concern that I think Delegate Fisher's talking about.
Yeah, but I do think Delegate Cardin, I'll let Holly respond. I'm sorry, Holly.
No, you can respond. I think it would be the same process that happens now. Yes, they would get in trouble, but then they would have to respond accordingly. Like, yes, I was in jail during that period of time. Exactly what Delegate Fisher was saying. They'd go through the same procedures that if, for example, if you were in a hospital and you didn't receive notice, or if there were other circumstances and you couldn't go, you would just have to go by the same accord.
I have a question.
Yes, Delegate.
Chair and my friend Delegate Fisher, I just curious, was it your intent to allow people who are registered child sex offenders to serve on juries, even juries that might be
Your mic is a little low for me.
putting a sex offender?
I don't know if that's everyone
on trial?
else. I'm sorry. The only thing I heard was.
Question, right, the question was, do you know that you're allowing child sex offenders to serve on juries?
I think we're allowing people who have served their time.
It was if you wanted it.
Is that the question?
Yeah, I just want to know if you intended that. I didn't know if you had intended a registered sex offender to be able to serve. Because I see that you don't want anyone who is continuing a service of probation But that would not include registration with the sex offender registry, right?
Unless that was a condition of their probation. Because I think like, so the intentionality of the bill, Delegate Coxon, is when you finish your probation, right? You finished everything that was required to say you did the crime, you're punished, you're done, right? And then you would get your right to vote back and you're part of the pool, you're part of society again. So people that are on a registry, if it's just ongoing and probation is closed and they are restored, then yes, they'd be part of the bigger pool. If for example, people have all kinds of different probation situations, if it was within the probation period, then no, they would not be. So I think that would be case per case, but I think it's the same. Those same people have the right to vote and are voting though. So
right,
use those voter rolls
But
for our jury
could I just
service
ask, do you
pools.
really want that? I hear you, and I that's where I'm kind of lost. Where I don't think that would be your intent here, right? I mean, do we really want that to happen?
Can I reverse it? Why would you exclude people on the sex offender registry?
Right.
To try a case of a guy or someone who is on trial for raping a 5-year-old, I wouldn't want.
But that's what voir dire is for.
That's what voir dire is for.
Yeah, but you may not be able to get them off. I mean, there's always, that process, as we all know who have done voir dire, that process is not a guarantee. And you only have a certain number for causes. And then the judge I've never seen a judge exclude anyone. And that's because no one really wants to serve and everyone wants to find a way off. So,
Wow.
anyway.
So that happens in Frederick
I
County.
was saying, you should come to Prince George's County.
I was like, come to Prince George's County, Delegate Cox.
God, my judges.
That's not happening at our jury pools. But no, I understand your concerns, Delegate Cox, and I'm not insensitive to them. I think it's just about if we're going to say, if we're a system, and there are all things that in this committee that make us uncomfortable, but if we are a system that says you did a crime, paid the price, are you back in society or are you not? Right. And so I think this General Assembly has said, when you do the crime, you finish your punishment, you finish their probation, you're back in society. You have the right to vote. This is one more piece I'm trying to add. You also serve in our greater system as everyone else does. Or we're not saying, then we're saying when you do a crime and you're done with your probation, you're still a different type of citizen, which I don't think is what this body wants to say. So there are all kinds of things and all kinds of bills I could bring up about things I want to exclude, I don't like, and other things. But I have to, my heart as a Marylander wants me to say, when you finish your time on anything, then you're back to being a citizen, or are we saying they are not? They are not. I mean, that's really the crux of the question.
So your total intent definitely is to bring back full citizenship, right? To that person.
To that person.
Yes.
Or keep them on probation.
So it should mirror.
indefinitely.
So it should mirror pretty much what we're doing with voting, right?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I move favorable.
Second? Anybody?
I'll second.
Thank you. Good. Okay, so there's a favorable motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
I think there should be some amendments to just kind of tighten it up. Just make sure, does it really mirror, voting?
Okay, so Holly, do you think, do you want to hold it and make sure that it reflects exactly is that what you're asking to do? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see,
Well, I guess
is
my
that
question-
where everybody is?
Well, I guess my question, Delegate Crutchfield, is, Holly, can you clarify, is it not reflecting the full citizen as we did with voting, or it is? Because when we passed it last year, it was my understanding from committee staff, and it passed our committee and it passed the House, and it just ended because of COVID, that it did do that. So if Holly, if you don't think it does, I'm happy to entertain holding it to clarify that it does. But from what we passed last year, it's the same language. I thought that it does.
Okay.
It is clear.
Yes, Delegate Fisher, I think you're right, and Delegate Crutchfield, to your question, it's opening up that door. So there are the five reasons why, and the one that's changed up for Delegate Fisher's bill is you have to be charged with a felony and is currently serving. So she's opening it up unless it's that one section. And it would align as it did last year and when the bill moved. There haven't been any changes.
Right. I actually think it's probably a little bit more expansive than the voting rights. Probably, if you look at exactly the same, because you could have a voter fraud conviction, not be allowed to vote, but be allowed to serve on the
Just
jury.
serve on the
And
jury.
there's no reason why
Okay.
you shouldn't be able to serve on a jury.
Okay.
Why shouldn't you be able to serve on a jury?
You're right.
And the likelihood is that the jury is not dealing, the case is not involving voter fraud.
Right, because that comes up so often.
Okay, so there's a favorable and a second. Any other discussion? So we're gonna put it to a vote. Is all those in favor, raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Delegate Grammer, Delegate Cox, Delegate Malone. Okay, thank you very much. Hey, before you leave, nobody leave yet. So we got some texts here from Delegate Grammer and Delegate Cox about other people from the other subcommittee, from the other committee. First of all, their votes don't count in our vote. So just so you know, we were only counting our votes. We had the votes to pass it without them. So that wasn't an issue. Should they have been here? They were invited. It was my mistake to allow them to debate, but they were here to be able to provide perspective and information. They were part of the hearing. So I'll take that. I will make sure with the chair that it's either appropriate or inappropriate. And
Chair, Delegate Cardenzino, Chair said that they could be involved because they've worked on the bill for the last couple of years. And this was the first year it was a joint bill. So they
I have
were
a comment.
heavily involved. And that was one reason we double checked with that situation.
Because the bill
And-
was jointly assigned, is that why, Holly?
Yes.
Comment if I may,
Jointly
Mr. Chair.
assigned for the first
Yep,
time
wait a
this
second.
year.
okay, Delegate Grammer.
Yeah, I actually prefer that they be here. But what I have a concern about is the allowing them to engage in debate. Because if I have a question, it's very helpful to ask them. And you saw I did that last year. I brought in the Office of Public Defender, the state's
Yep.
attorneys. So I like having them here. What I'm concerned about is when I get to criminal subcommittee, everybody's going to want to talk and it's already a mess. And so we should make a rule about if we're debating, it's just us. And
I'm
we
going to
can-
suggest that you take that to the chair because he makes those decisions, not me, number one. Number two, and I think that's a fair point. I'm not saying that he's going to agree with you, but I think it's a fair point. Our subcommittees are very different here than they are in other committees. Similar to Ways and Means, we really don't engage other people.
Sure.
Unless they're invited to come in. But in Environment and Transportation, they invite the whole world and they sit around and kumbaya, have a campfire. So
I just want to understand, are we allowing people
no,
from
I
outside
don't
of the-
know. That's why I want you to talk to the chair and find out. If he tells me, yes, they can be here to answer questions versus debate, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I was doing what I was kind of told.
Delegate Grammer, this was a joint bill as well, which changes the dynamic. I think if it were just generally just our bill, they would not have been allowed and they would not have been.
Right. And that's what I wrote in the text. You weren't on part of the text, Holly, but-
I get that, but they also have a subcommittee. And I understand it's a special scenario. I just want to iron this out now.
I agree. Now, I will tell you also that I think that the comments made by judiciary civil law subcommittee members holds far more weight with me and my decision to vote than anybody from ENT. Particularly, and I won't name names, but the folks who here, they were very well stated and they're very good, but I know my committee members and I just enjoy. So don't worry, we take the weight as it should be taken from their comments.
I appreciate
Mr.
it.
Chair, I have a clarifying question before.
Yeah.
And when we do have bills in this subcommittee for just the subject matter experts, do we email like you and Holly, like these are subject matter experts that are here to be silent unless there's a question?
Right. So I think Dylan wants to be the person to invite them. That was a great question because I asked that same question.
Oh,
So yes, we should just make sure that they're officially invited because they have to get the link from him, and then then he'll make sure that that Holly approves and just knows that people are coming. We just want to make sure that everybody can watch as we're live streaming right now. But in terms of people who are in the committee, that's something that we can we'll make sure that the chair is aware of who's going to be in the subcommittee meetings.
Yeah, just please email me and Dylan and Delegate Cardin. And also just once you get your Zoom link, just like you would for hearings, you don't want to share it, like invite a stakeholder without letting us know that they're going to be present. One, they get stuck in the waiting room, but also we want Delegate Cardin to be able to approve them to be present.
One more question. Can we invite staff, like our personal staff, just to watch?
They can watch the live stream, but no, they can't.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Awesome,
Move to
guys.
adjourn.
Good first. We're gonna have a bunch of stuff because I think we got Will's Trust and Estates coming to us maybe and other amendments. So let's get ready to rumble.
And second delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. See you guys
Thank you,
Wednesday.
Delegate Cardin.